Okay, so this is the 10th video in the Critical Essays series. We've looked at how the essay questions work. We've looked at the whole structure of the introduction, main paragraphs, and the conclusion. These last three videos are just going to take you through a few wee tips and bits of advice for either, in this case, dealing with essay questions, or in the other ones, recapping your work and studying in general. So I'm going to show you here a little process that I would be going through when it comes to tackling an essay question. This is more of an issue when you get to the point when you've done more than one text and are being faced with more than one question at a time. But I still think that seeing the process might be useful for you even at the start of the course. So we'll have a look. So there's an example of an essay question. Choose a poem which explores a particular one or more emotion, a list of the emotions that are there, and then how does it add into your appreciation of the poem as a whole. So what you want to do in terms of figuring out the demands of the question is, firstly, you need to decide, well, which texts could I use for this? So say we might have done 3 or 4 or 5 poems by the end of the year. So you're going to have to decide what's the most appropriate one of those poems for the particular question that's been put in front of you. So we'll have to figure that out. The other thing we'll have to figure out is, for those different poems that maybe could be used for this, which individual emotions would we be using for them, and will it be one or will it be more? Because that'll then determine which one's going to make the best essay for the essay question. So if we assume that we've maybe done 4 poems, the process for working this kind of thing out would maybe look something like this. So this is just something I've sketched out and then taken a photo of to show you. 4 poems there: War Photographer, Visiting Hour, Early Purges, and Refugee Mother and Child. All poems that I've taught before, might teach this year. So I've put down each of them, and then underneath that I've put down what the emotions would maybe be that would relate to those individual poems. So now at a glance I can see that for those 4 poems there are a couple of different options for each one. It's possible to do more than one emotion for each one. I can see that a few similar emotions are coming up as well across them. So now I know that yes, all 4 of these texts are potentially appropriate, and yes, I know that I'll be able to get at least one of the specified emotions out of each of these texts. That's good. The next step is thinking, well, what's the argument that we're going to make? That's this thing that I said in the earlier video of looking at the second essay question. It's saying here, how does the emotion, grief or despair or whatever, help you to fully appreciate the poem as a whole? Which means, how does it help you to really grasp or engage with some big idea or key theme or key aspect of a character or something like that? So that takes us on to the next stage of this little process, which looks like this. So for War Photographer, despair and shock, if we can get fear in there now as well. And then underneath that, what would the argument be? The argument is that he'll be scared of what he's having to face. The argument for Visiting Hour is that fear, was it say there, fear lets us grasp what's actually going on with him and how scared he is to say goodbye. So for each one of these things, and it won't mean much to you just now, obviously, without having done the poems, but for each one of these things, I've started off with, well, these are the names of the texts. Then I've said, well, the first part of the question asked me about emotions. What might the emotions be that would work? And then the second part of the question asks me, right, what does that emotion do in terms of helping me to understand the big ideas of the text? And that's what the next line on the screen in front of you there is. That's me just kind of sketching out, well, this is basically what I'd be arguing about, how the emotions here help me to understand something bigger that the author's trying to get across. So as I say, this is something that will probably be more useful the further we go through the year, but I think it is quite helpful early on just to let people see the kind of processes that are involved in thinking through critical essays. And as I say, this is the process that I would and do go through. This is exactly what I wrote when I looked at that essay question. So don't feel as if, if you have to go through these kind of processes, that somehow you're not doing things properly or you're not very good at English or something like that. This is the process that I would expect to see, that English is hard work at points, and it just involves sitting and thinking and working things out, same as any other subject, and that's what you can see in front of you there. Okay, so hopefully that's useful for you. As I say, maybe more later on. Any questions, anything else you would like to see along these kind of lines, get in touch and let me know, and I'll see about getting that sorted out for you. Thanks.